Sculpting From Time is the second full-length album from Asphodelus. This is a southern Finnish melodic death doom metal band who we could certainly call a gothic metal or a gothic doom metal band at this point. And on their second album, they lean just as deep into their influences as they had in the first record, but now we find less of the arcane sort of Verathron or Rotting Christ-esque touch of their maybe their more early 90s influenced material on their first record and their earlier demos, and now we find something that is a little bit closer, edging towards the mid 90s in terms of both gothic metal and how that affected a lot of black and death metal and death doom metal in the early 90s, as well as certainly still resembling a certain era of catatonia per their first two full lengths. So the sound on this record is technically very heavy on the gothic and gothic doom metal side of things, but they haven't necessarily lost their edge. They certainly work in a lot of more clean vocals and whatnot, but they haven't fully lost the this sort of mystere of darker death doom metal either. So the best thing to do is cut right into a song, and we can kind of see where I go with this. So the debut from this band was one of my favorite records of 2019. Now, number 49 out of 50 seems a little bit low, but you have to consider that there were probably over 1,000 records considered for that list and 75 included. So probably my second favorite sort of gothic or melodic death doom metal record of that year. There's quite a lot in there, and I bought the record. I went back to it a million times since. This is a band I was very much looking forward to, whatever they did next. So I was glad they signed to a bigger label, bigger distribution for the second record, and they haven't really they don't seem to have lost pace or lost sight of what they were doing. If anything, you might get a little bit more of a Brave Murder Day or even a little bit of October Tide on this record. You could still reference Tiamat's early 90s, like pre-94 feeling on kind of that interstitial moment of Clouds. Well, also, there's a lot of deeper cuts we could work in there, but essentially we're getting gothic rock or gothic metal influenced death doom metal from the 90s, and with the guitar hooks and certain types of harmonies and sort of a distant, very depressive atmosphere that hangs over the whole record. The theme of the record is very much the passage of time and how it hangs on people who are stuck in a mode mentally. So there's a very serious edge to this music. It is very crestfallen, but also tuneful at every turn. So the thing to note about this record is, it's a little bit less crusty around the edges. They've changed the way they've recorded it. They've written more direct, hook-driven songs. It is more accessible in most senses, but it is still sort of a throwback to an era, which is very certainly nostalgic in that sense. And for me, Dance of December Souls is one of my favorite albums of all time. It is one of the first emotional connections I had to esoteric extreme metal. So this record distinctly captures that similar feeling, because they probably feel similarly about that album and that the early career of that band as well. So it's a big plus for me, and it might not seem entirely original to a lot of listeners, but this is capably emotional music. It is very evocative and dramatic and well made. And I think the up of fidelity that this gets helps bring that point across. I wish the bass guitar was a little bit more active throughout, and it could all be a little bit more intricate in its layering. But again, it's calling back to a certain era, and this means that certain types of songs work and don't work, but most of them are kind of hook-driven 4 to 6 minute gothic doom metal songs. So that's really the rub of it. That's kind of my major takeaway from this. I think it is sort of a step up and a step into their own in some sense, but they're still working up that ladder in terms of what is entirely unique about Asphodelus, and when to let go of those influences and have their own sort of feeling attached to that very unique atmosphere. And I think the big sell for this record is that it carries that atmosphere and that feeling, which is not only nostalgic but still very effective in its own right under their own phrasing. So it is a high recommendation for me. I think it will probably edge up over time, but I'm being a little bit conservative with this one because I think it just demands a little bit more time and consideration, because it is sort of this hype-inducing thing when you find emotional sort of doom metal music that it definitely needs the test of time to suss out exactly where it lands. So for now, a lot of enthusiasm for me. This is one of my higher recommendations for August, and definitely read more about this in the written review if you feel like it, and check out the album the Friday after next.